Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 87. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Monday show. Dave, good to be back with you. Back from my trip from the 2022 Senior Bowl, which was a lot of fun. Really appreciate everyone who filled in for me this past week. That was Tom, Corey, and a fantastic roundtable discussion for Friday's show from those who covered the Shrine Bowl. That's Mel, Owen, and Josh. We'll have a Senior Bowl roundtable hopefully on Wednesday with myself and Jonathan and Jacob and Tyler, assuming that they can all make it. But good to be back with you on the mic here, Dave.
Absolutely. Glad to have you back as well, too. And hope Mobile was enjoyable enough. I know one day you spent out there, at least one day out in the rain. I know another day they didn't let everybody go over to the indoor facility over there, so you kind of had to watch it on TV, I guess, like the rest of us did. But yeah, let's get right to kind of the important stuff. I understand you and the guys went to a Waffle House.
We did, but I knew we had to do that at least once, or you'd be very mad at us when we go back.
Okay. Well, I would like to know about these things ahead of time, so I can get mad about them ahead of time. There, no. In all seriousness, I'm glad you did get to take the guys out, and what a tremendous job you and Jonathan and Jacob and Tyler Wise did while you were down there. Really a wealth of information and good articles and daily breakdowns and obviously a lot of good interviews, I think, that are going to continue to roll in over the next few days. There were so many of them for you, so I was very proud of you guys work that you did down there. And look, this kind of effectively these past 2 weeks kick off the draft season for us, especially for me and you, right? Because we don't get a lot of time to look at a lot of these college players in depth during the season. But once the Senior Bowl rolls around, it's kind of like, all right, hit the ground running. And it feels like we have done that now.
Yeah, it feels like it's the start of draft season for us, and I think it also just shifts the mentality of kind of the football world to draft season. That's when things really get kicked up, and draft Twitter really gets going, and that feeling was evident in Mobile. So it's great to be back. Obviously, I did not go last year because of everything going on with COVID. So nice to be able to return there and just be in a very unique environment. A day where Dan Reno just walks past you in the hallway and you just say hello, and just kind of cool stuff like that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Absolutely. It's glad that you were able to go back again. And once again, glad had three new guys experience and take that in. And I think one of the comments you made about the three of them was, man, they were so far ahead of where you were the first time that you went. And I guess, in the world of YouTube scouting and all, like, I guess you're the old man in YouTube scouting now. But it is good to hear that those guys weren't overwhelmed by it. They were able to fit right in and kind of get done what needed to get done down there.
Yeah, they were fantastic. They hit the ground running. I only had to provide really very small amount of direction to them. Just tell them where to go and wind them up and watch them go. And so they all did a fantastic job. And same with Josh and Mel and Owen. So really proud of the group that we have and the work that they do. All right, Dave, let's start things, and I'll push the Senior Bowl recap from you and I to later in the show. I want to focus on some of the big news from the Steelers side of things, from all the things that I've kind of missed over the past week and things that happened over the weekend. We'll start with the biggest news of the past week, the Pro Bowl. No, it's not the biggest news, but we will begin with it and touch on it briefly because several Steelers did play in this game, including Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, TJ Watt, and Cam Hayward. AFC wins this amazing game, 41-35, in this not even two-hand touch, whatever you want to call it. Deontay Johnson, a two-point conversion. Najee Harris, a key fourth down catch late in the game. TJ Watt with a strip sack fumble that resulted in a Myles Garrett touchdown. Only time you'll hear Garrett and Watt's names happily combined together like that. So the Pro Bowl took place. It probably shouldn't have, but there you go.
Yeah, and now I guess it's time for our annual rant about what they need to do to try to improve it. And I don't know, I was glad to see ahead of the Pro Bowl kicking off that they have, had some kind of I guess carrots dangling out there charity wise, monetary, if there's a 100-yard rusher, I think it's like, I don't know, 5,000 to, I forget what the amounts were and all like that. But there were kind of monetary incentives put in for the different position groups with all the money, I think, going to specific charities of those players or whatnot. But it still wasn't enough. Look, I mean, there were times in there where you saw probably 90% effort, I guess, between TJ Watt a couple of times, especially down in the red zone there. Max Crosby, those guys were getting after it on a couple of snaps here, but the majority of it was glorified walkthrough, if you will. And I don't know of a way to really other than doing what they're doing now, other than maybe it just becoming a full-fledged flag football game. I don't know what else to do. Maybe you put flags on them and put them in pads and let them go that way. I don't know. The big concern is you don't want somebody hurt at one of these games, and I certainly do understand that fully, but the product out there. I mean, look, it was cute late in the game to see Mac Jones do what he did and run the length of the field and hit the gritty, as the kids like to say, that kind of thing there. But the cute moments were very few and far between, and it makes you kind of wonder if that's enough to carry this thing. And where's this thing going to be hosted, and why are all these cities not able to keep the Pro Bowl? For years, obviously it was in Hawaii, and it comes down to I'll tell you why. I'm going to get right to I'm going to cheat you right to the answer. It's money. If there was a lot of money to be made in hosting the Pro Bowl year after year, it wouldn't have never got out of Hawaii. So and obviously it rotated back and forth, I think, to Hawaii and Orlando a few years, and now Vegas has it. And I just wonder what the future of the whole of the Pro Bowl is going to be. I mean, obviously it's an honor. That honor is not going to go away. I just wonder about the future of the game in and of itself. Moving forward. Is Vegas the place to have it? Do you combine it? Do you maybe move the hockey all-star game out there full time and then kind of let each of them feed off of each other for support? That might be something to look at, but make no mistake, the Pro Bowl will go where the money is, but I'm not sure where that is right now. Is it indeed Las Vegas? And what does the future of the game hold? Past this glorified kind of walkthrough stage.
Maybe there really is no great way to fix it. Maybe you just accept the fact that the game is what it is, and if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. You got the Super Bowl next week, so it's not like it's the last football game of the season. So I don't spend a lot of time thinking about ways to fix a meaningless, essentially exhibition type of game, but certainly not enjoyable football to watch.
And however you do decide to move forward to it, the first time somebody suffers any kind of injury, it'll be, see, that's why, so yeah, look, I understand both sides of it. It feels like I say this every year when it comes to it. And Dave, why do you watch it? Well, I mean, anytime there's Steelers involved in anything, it's my job to watch it, so, if I wasn't doing what I do now, for a living, obviously covering the team and having a site, I'm not so sure I would have tuned into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I only had it on sometimes as background noise, A, in case any Steeler made a crazy play, and B, and more importantly, if any Steeler got hurt. Those are the two main reasons why that game was even on my radar. Otherwise, it's not something I'm really focusing in on.
I did a lot of, I was working on a contextualization of my first one of the year while that was going on there. But, all right. I mean, no sense to have a long rant about this. We do it every year, but it'd be interesting to see, how indeed the Pro Bowl moves forward from this, if indeed it does.
All right, Dave, I'm going to work backwards here on Steelers news throughout the week here in terms of just the most interesting front office and coaching changes and things like that. Yesterday, it was reported the Steelers, and it'll probably be officially announced by the time people are listening to this, will hire Teryl Austin to be the next defensive coordinator, replacing the retired Keith Butler. Austin serving as a defensive assistant coach, working primarily with the secondary since he's been hired by the team a few years ago. And so while the team, had a couple of external interviews and some outside candidates they were looking at, it's always been strongly believed in. The suspicion was that Austin would be promoted internally to be the next DC, and that seems to be the case. Now, Austin apparently got a look from the Giants for their DC job after Patrick Graham surprisingly left to the Raiders, and so maybe that sped up the Steelers' urgency in kind of locking Austin down. I'm a bit surprised it took this long for them to promote Austin. Maybe there's a due diligence aspect to it and him looking at some other jobs as well. But bottom line is Teryl Austin will be your DC in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, kind of went the way that we've speculated it might end up going for quite some time now, But the main beef, the main thing out there right now, it seems to be, is people tired of internal hires and yada yada. Well, here and Mike Tomlin having such a strong thumbprint on defensive play calling on a game in, game out basis, whatever that is. Here's the thing. How has the defense been as a whole throughout the Mike Tomlin tenure dating back to 2007? And the answer to that is, for the most part, year in, year out, the defensive units are pretty good. In fact, better than pretty good. Now, this year was obviously not against the run wasn't there, but the team was able to get sacks and there's a fair amount of turnovers there, especially I think as the season went along there. But I guess the beef moving forward will be, why does Mike Tomlin have to have such a firm grip on, does he really even need a defensive coordinator in name? Is that what the position really is? Just a position in name? I guess it's whatever, the fan wants it to be in their own head. I mean, we're never going to know just how much or, how many plays in a game Mike Tomlin actually makes the call on, but, and how long that has happened going back, throughout the entire Keith Butler term, and even before that, the later stages of the Dick LeBeau tenure, if you will. There, I'm not surprised. I mean, this team is done a lot of internal hires, a lot of promotion over the years, and it wasn't a surprise to see Teryl Austin get the job, and it wasn't a surprise maybe to not see an outsider with the kind of the grip that Mike Tomlin has maybe on that defense, for an outsider maybe to not maybe want the job. I tell you what, if I was an outside defensive coordinator and I'm coming in for an interview, that's one of the questions that's going to be on my mind. Will I really be calling the defense, or will I just be, calling a set of plays maybe from the three that you give me, kind of thing there. So that's always going to be the talk. That's going to be the talk this next couple of weeks when some of these hires are made official here. But, just, don't tell me about the labor pains. Just show me the baby. What's that defensive baby going to look like next year?
Yeah, hopefully a bit better than it did this year. And I think it should. I'm optimistic about the Steelers defense for 2022. Yeah, I mean, Keith Butler outlined his role pretty well, and I assume Austin will occupy a similar space in the sense of not really any very limited play calling duties opportunity on game day, but he's kind of more the install the game plan guy during the week. Wednesdays, him and the positional coaches kind of putting together the core game plan, Tomlin going over it, adding his input, of course, as well, and then Tomlin executing that game plan on game day. So Austin's role is still going to be important from a game plan install standpoint. It does make the evaluation of who gets credit, who gets blame a bit tough, because Austin's helped putting together the game plan and then Tomlin's executing it. So it's a chicken or egg kind of thing. But, I'm not surprised by this. No one should be. I don't think anyone is. B, Austin is a good coach. I think his impact in Pittsburgh's been really positive. The first year he came here really emphasized taking the football away, some of the turnover circuits this team would run, especially this in the secondary during practice, during training camp. I thought you saw a real clear, direct correlation between Austin's arrival and this team's takeaway numbers going through the roof, which is generally your main strength over his tenure. Like this past year, not as strong, kind of finished out the year better than the way they started it, but given the turnover there in the secondary, there were some growing pains that weren't a big surprise to see. So I think Austin is a quality coach. So I don't get too hung up on the inside-outside hire or even the Tomlin play calling thing, because a lot of head coaches, and most of them offensively, but most of those guys call their own plays. And this defense has been really strong overall, especially in 19 and 2020. So bottom line is Austin's a good coach. It really didn't matter quite as much who they were going to hire, and they were not going to be able to bring in a big name DC like a Patrick Graham, because that guy's going to want more control than what the Steelers are going to offer.
Okay, fair enough.
So bottom line is, yeah, it's not a surprise at all, and I think Austin has been a good coach and a good presence for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was the DC shoe that is essentially dropping, again, probably official by the time you guys are listening to this.
Even if somebody had, even if we were so against it,
Mm-hmm.
we would say it and just kind of move on from it, because I mean it's not going to change anything at this point. Should Tomlin maybe allow his coaches to maybe coach more? I guess that's the biggest overarching question.
Yeah, and there can be a lot of debate about that. I guess people weren't happy with the results this year. I think to me it was less of a play calling issue than it was a personnel and to some extent the game plan itself issue than individual play calls. So I'm not going to gripe about it as much as other people are, because I think this defense has played well. And you think about, before this year, the last two, Pittsburgh had an elite level defense. And I do think you're going to see improvement in 2022.
When things do go well, it's less about the coaching than you hear a lot of people say, well, how can it not be great? Look at the talent they have.
Sure. And we made that point as well. They drafted a ton of first round picks.
Right. So and what, have you ever seen a good defense? Have you ever seen a defense, I guess, overachieve? When's the last time in the NFL you've seen a defense consistently overachieve with less than superior talent?
Yeah, I'm sure it's happened. I'd have to look around the league. But yeah, there was an expectation this defense should play well given all the investments in it, all the first round picks. What was it, 7, 8 straight years of first round picks defensively to make up its Patrick trade. So obviously this defense should be playing well given the talent, but they were playing well was just kind of the bottom line. What
technically on game day, what makes a great coordinator? Just the ability to, I think more than anything is learning in game and self-scouting yourself to not, a good example of this, man. I there's not enough hours in a day, Alex, I swear to God, especially for someone like me who's up 20 of them. Peyton Manning on the ESPN Insider. No, okay. The insider, the ESPN Insider, I forget what they call that, but he's got that series called Detail, and where he breaks down the play of quarterbacks. Well, I finally got around a couple of nights ago to watching the one he did on Joe Burrow, and one of those is just showing the game against the 49ers earlier in the season and how the 49ers didn't do a good job of back-to-back plays. The Bengals offense came out in one grouping and one formation, and then I forget, it was like a penalty or a timeout or something like that, and they didn't do a good job of changing that up, and the Bengals came out and see if they were going to do the same thing, and the 49ers did do the same thing, and it made obviously the read for the offense a lot better in those situations. So I would think just more than anything, being able to self-scout yourself in game, and change things up. And look, teams have done this against the Steelers very well, especially in this past season, right? Didn't you write a couple of things about, especially on the offensive side of football and how Matt Canada was expecting maybe to get one thing and then turn around a quarter later and he got something entirely different. Those are those are little, I think, intricacies of in-game defensive coordinator play calling.
Yeah, I think it's just being able to anticipate things is what kind of makes a good coordinator in terms of, understanding what you're doing and your own tendencies. And of course, what the opposing offense is doing from a DC standpoint, what their tendencies are or what you're expecting and what, calls best combat that. And so it is just trying to match that chess game, which defensive, guys are always kind of one step behind because they're always responding to what the offense is doing. They're not really setting the pace the way that, the offenses are capable of doing. So I think just overall the word is kind of anticipation when it comes to being a good play caller.
While we're on the topic, in off season here throughout the year, we get tons of emails and questions and Twitter comments about what's the best way to study, for somebody new who's a fan that wants to know more about the X's and O's and understanding the game. Look, this just isn't something that happens overnight and you're never a finished product either. I'm constantly learning more and more things about the X's and O's and all of the game. But if you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it, jump on that ESPN Insider there and go through every one of those Peyton Manning details there. You will learn so much about the game just in that series alone. So I know we get a lot of kind of questions about that, but that is a fantastic starting spot for a fan wanting to maybe learn more about the X's and O's of the game.
Yeah, for sure. Anything that Peyton Manning has to say, people should be, tuning in, no doubt about it. So that's the hire, Teryl Austin being the DC, and so that fills one of this team's positions. Before we let's get to O-line coach right now since we're on the coaching staff. One surprising piece of news that really surprised me whenever I heard about it when I was down in Mobile is that Chris Morgan has left the organization, has now been hired by the Chicago Bears to be their head offensive line coach out there in Chicago. And so we kind of felt like that would be another potential internal promotion. Morgan taking over for Adrian Clem when Clem left for Oregon late this past season, carrying that interim label. We thought it could be a permanent one. And so that is obviously not the case now that Morgan is heading to Chicago. And so now the question is, who will this team's O-line coach be? They've lost two of them. Could it be Mike Munchak? That's certainly something I'm sure we'll discuss here. But right now, no one quite knows who this O-line coach will be.
Yeah, we don't, and there is a lot of obviously the fan base is rooting for Mike Munchak to come back home, if you will, and I would maybe there's a potential of that happening. Now Munchak did leave to get closer to his family, and Munchak has been around the NFL quite a few years now, and maybe he's done. I don't know. From what I understand, he still wants to coach, though. I think there's obviously still a couple of offensive line coach positions around the NFL available. Heck, I think who was the team? I mean, Houston hasn't even really done anything yet.
Nor the Saints haven't hired a head coach.
Right, and the Saints and all like that. So I don't know. Maybe Munchak thinking of, he could still either get a head coaching job, or if not, there's a couple other offensive line coach positions available. Look, a little over a year ago in January, I wrote about Doug Marrone, and thinking, man, Doug Marrone just seems like the perfect fit for the Steelers, to fill their offensive line coaching needs. Well, Doug Marrone ended up going back to Alabama, and that ended up being for one season. The latest word on the street is, it's not word on the street. It's fact that Doug Marrone's not going to be at Alabama in 2022. He's going to return back to the NFL again, and there's only X amount of jobs open right now, and he's not going to be a head coach, I don't think, unless it is maybe a team like the Saints or something like that. You start putting the Blues clues together, if you will, Alex. And to me, I think the Steelers would be foolish not to go with an experienced offensive line coach this time around. To me, I have a feeling it's going to be one or two people. It's going to be Munchak or Doug Marrone, quite honestly. Obviously there's other names, haven't dug this thing, haven't drilled down too deep there. And I'm sure there's other names that can be added to the list. But just on a surface kind of feel for this thing right now, And, there is a little bit of a connection, I guess, between Marrone, and I wrote about this over a year ago. Marrone has a little bit of a history linking back to the, to the Steelers and all, especially as a player way back when. It makes a lot of sense that the Steelers' new offensive line coach will be either Mike Munchak or Doug Marrone.
Yeah, we know the Munchak's not going to be back in Denver. They just hired a new offensive line coach under new head coach Nathaniel Hackett. There was actually some speculation that Marrone might be going to Denver because he had worked with Hackett before, but they hired another guy. So Marrone, I assume, is not going to end up there. Munchak and Marrone, they're not going to be head coaches. They're probably just waiting to see the shuffling between new head coaches that get hired, and as they begin to assemble their staff, and the two outstanding jobs right now in Houston, which appears to go to Lovie Smith of all people, and the Saints, which seems to be up in the air right now. And so, yeah, it would make sense for Munchak to come home, or not come home, but come back to Pittsburgh, I should say, even though he went out to Denver to be close to his daughter. That's no longer an option for him if he wants to continue coaching, which I assume that he does. Marrone makes sense too. I would be all for it. Wouldn't have a big problem with that. I do wonder, the guys they interviewed last year, I haven't followed super closely if those guys are what their job situation is. I think one guy got hired. They looked at Hank Fraley, who's with Detroit, I believe, still. So I just wonder if they might circle back, to kind of use the Zoom term, to one of those O-line coaches they interviewed last year before officially promoting Clem.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, what staffs are technically open right now for that job? You would think Miami just hired, so that staff's got to be put together, right?
Yeah, I heard that McDaniel's going to try to keep at least a decent core of that staff, but I'm sure there'll be some shuffling there.
AFC South, we already talked about Houston and what's going on with Jacksonville. Obviously, Marrone wouldn't be going back there, at least you wouldn't think.
Yeah, I don't have a great layout of all the coaching staff situations. Obviously, things are still up in the air in a lot of places right now.
Las Vegas, I guess. I don't know if they've named an offensive line coach yet. Haven't paid attention to what. Yeah, I mean, look, there's several jobs that or several directions that guys like Munchak and Marrone, options that they still might have there. But I mean, just once again, I haven't drilled this down deep, but on the surface, you would, it feels like it might end up being Munchak or Marrone.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at the names they interviewed last year here on the fly. The one guy I was thinking of was James Campen, and he was just hired as the Panthers head offensive line coach. So take him off the table. Hank Fraley, I believe, is still the O-line coach in Detroit. And I think there was a third name, Dave, that they'd interviewed last year. I don't know if you remember or not. Maybe I'm misremembering. I know there was those two names. I was trying to think if there was a third guy they had interviewed. I'm not seeing it though. Yeah. So I thought maybe they could go back to one of those guys, but that might be tough to do. So it could also just be someone that we're not aware of. Chris Morgan was kind of a guy that we didn't know about until he was officially named as the assistant offensive line coach. And so, it could certainly be a guy that, we're just not even thinking about right now.
You would like to see a more experienced guy though, right?
You would, especially in Pittsburgh, because the O-line coach is not just the O-line coach. Traditionally, he's been the run game coordinator as well. And so there's a real big job in terms of someone who's really experienced, understands not only coaching the position, but understanding the run game as a whole. And those things are obviously intertwined, even if you're just a quote unquote, just an offensive line coach. But there's, I think, an additional responsibility in Pittsburgh.
The thing you circle back to some of the things Mike Tomlin had. And look, Mike Tomlin's, never really negative or never negative when talking about opposition and all like that, but he really praised a few years ago talking about Marrone and the job he did with the run game at the time, and it really feels like, to me, that's the way I feel. Like if I was to put odds on this thing, I would put probably Marrone is more the favorite than Munchak, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, Marrone was leaving Bama specifically to go to the NFL. You would think that he has kind of a job lined up, you would think.
Right, right.
Why else would he be leaving if, and specifically for the NFL? So I'm surprised maybe there hasn't been an announcement yet, but that's certainly a good name to note and watch for.
And, I don't know if you couldn't take notes of all the who's down in Mobile, but anyway, they are back from Mobile. I think we're going to see a lot of movement this week from the Steelers in these announcements with the remainder of the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think those things will get tied up pretty quickly here as you begin to set things for free agency and start those evaluations. And you want your coaches to be able to sign off and kind of give their input on what guys should be signed and re-signed and all those kinds of things.
Any other coaching? That's it for the coaching news, right?
Yeah, I believe so. You know me, I watch the Steelers front office page like a hawk. Always refreshing to see any changes that occur there.
You got to run into Omar Khan in the airport, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I don't know how much I should say, but he and I both ran to catch our flight because our flight from Mobile to Charlotte, which was then departing to Pittsburgh, got delayed. So I can say he and I both sprinted our little butts to catch our flight.
Let's just not give away too much, but he knows what Steelers Depot is, does he not?
Yeah, he's aware, it seems to be, and likes our work. So that was really good, and just a really good guy too. So it was really good to meet him. It's the people you meet in the actually that's like the best part of the trip. One of the best parts, the Mobile airport, the people that you meet. I always see a Steelers guy in there and always get the chance to say hello.
Yeah, I thought Jonathan Highturner might be an agent there for a little while. I thought he might shift course there, exit his trip to the Senior Bowl, maybe with a future shift as far as a profession or whatnot, because he's around so many of those guys sitting in the Pensacola airport there.
Yeah, that's what makes the Senior Bowl so unique. You just get, and I'm sure that Josh and those, guys had that same feeling out there at the Shrine Bowl, just a different kind of environment that you really don't get anywhere else.
How did you enjoy that weather in Mobile?
Not my favorite. I always forget the Mobile weather. Well, it's better than 20-something degrees in Pittsburgh. It's never that great. And so it was cold, windy, rainy, and I'm a big baby about bad weather and cold and stuff like that. I'm a summer guy. Give me 90 degrees over 30 degrees any single day of the week. And so it's not my favorite thing, but it's all worth it.
There's I live out here in Las Vegas. So I'm going to
You're trying everyone to move. You real estate agent Dave Bryan.
I'm going. My post Steelers Depot days will include me probably working for the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce or the Nevada, state Nevada Chamber of Commerce or something along those lines there. But beautiful weather out here for the Shrine for the Shrine Week and all that, Shrine Bowl week and all like that though. But I don't. That's why I moved from down there, because they call it the Sunshine State, Floribama, and all like that. It sure does rain. It sure does rain a lot down there these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think someone said, one of our Uber drivers said Mobile is the rainiest city in America, past Seattle a couple years ago. I don't know if that's true, but Uber driver said it, so I'll accept it as gospel.
Where all y'all eat down there?
A lot of places, a lot of seafood. Last night I had alligator for the first time. Fried alligator. It was pretty good. Yeah, they do. They say it tastes like chicken, and it's pretty close. So that was it was Bluegill Restaurants, apparently one of the well-known seafood places down there. It was pretty good.
I went to a tailgate one time many moons ago when Florida played LSU over in Baton Rouge there, and man, the tailgate that they had before that game there, I mean, there were a lot of people serving alligator and all like that, different ways on top of it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, can't beat the food down in Mobile. That's one thing for sure. That was one of the better parts of the trip. All right, Dave, let's go back to Pittsburgh here. Some more front office news to address. This came in on Friday. The Steelers and Art Rooney had said as much a couple weeks ago that they would be interviewing external candidates for their GM job to replace Kevin Colbert. After the draft, the team announced they've interviewed three people for that position: Ryan Cowden of the Titans, Ed Dodds of the Colts, and JoJo Wooden of the Chargers. And so I was trying to catch up on those names as I had just kind of gotten off the plane at that point. Dodds is the name I was most familiar with. He was interviewed for GM jobs, I think, especially in Las Vegas this year for the Raiders. Did not get it, as McDaniels and all those Patriots guys came over kind of collectively. But Dodds was the name that really stuck out to me, well regarded as a talent evaluator, having strong values, not afraid to go against the grain and those kinds of things. Cowden and Wooden, I'll be honest, I'm less familiar with, but those guys with pretty impressive resumes as well.
Yeah, but it does feel like it's a lot of due diligence here overall. Do you feel like this job's going to go? Are we headed for a kind of situation here with Omar Khan and Brandon Hunt?
I believe that's a possibility, and I pointed that out several times, including in the article I wrote, kind of giving a background on Khan and Hunt and some other external names that I thought made sense. But, again, I compare this to what the Packers did after Ted Thompson stepped down. They had kind of made Brian Gutekunst their football guy, the actual GM, but they also promoted their quote unquote cap guy. His name's Russ Ball to, I forget the exact title. I think it's Director of Football Operations. And so I think it is certainly possible you see something similar between Brandon Hunt and Omar Khan. But to your larger point, it would be difficult to see an external hire that would come in after the draft, after free agency. At least with an internal hire, those guys are with you the whole process and they have a good feeling of how this roster and why it's being built the way that it's being built.
All right, we sit and wait for the outcome of that. We just pass along the news of the people that the Steelers have talked to.
Yeah, and we'll see if there are any more interviews. There could be, I suppose, but it seems like those are probably the three guys and then the two internal. And end of the day, if it does go to one guy, I still am leaning towards Brandon Hunt, but I do think there is a real possibility it could be both Hunt and Khan seeing promotions and title and changes and things like that to replace a guy like Kevin Colbert.
Okay.
All right, Dave, let's get to the Senior Bowl. And again, down there this past week, could only in person go to 2 practices because the Thursday practice, they moved inside, so they limit the media because there isn't much space and players are right next to media. And when I was there that one year, that was kind of sketchy. Some people had to duck out of the way. And so, but you go back and watch all 22, which the Senior Bowl was able to provide. So I guess I should be the one starting this conversation, but just from your perspective, Dave, because I always ask the question here to begin it. What was kind of did you have any external feelings and takeaways from the Senior Bowl?
Just the understanding and learning more about, obviously, a lot of players that I went into the weekend or the week not knowing anything about.
Right.
It's more of a starting point for me. I mean, look, you get thrown right in, you start watching. Here's the thing: I have to print out this roster every year, and because you get down there and you get to study it a little bit more, you get to put the faces and the helmets with the players. My first exposure to it is what little bit they show on the NFL Network, and then I get right to the all 22 tape. The defensive line I usually start with the offensive line on defensive line, one-on-one pass drills and all like that. And then it's pause, look at the number, look at the player, look at the bio, and kind of go from there. There were a lot of kids that really just kind of jumped out for one reason or the other. For starters, the Winfrey kid out of Oklahoma, just unreal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's his Perion Winfrey? 6'3", 3/4, 303 pounds. Boy, he seemed like he was unblockable, especially in the drill aspect there. That's one guy that jumped out at me right away.
Yeah, I thought while this interior defensive line class isn't regarded as an elite group, I thought they played really well down there. And I thought Winfrey came on strong the last couple of days. Travis Jones from UConn, and I'm sure Jonathan will talk about him quite a bit. He had a really good week, strong, athletic, really dominated in those one-on-one drills and did so in team, had a good Senior Bowl performance himself. And so just overall, Neil Farrell from LSU, Devonta Wyatt from Georgia, all those Georgia kids that were down there, Jermaine Johnson, had a really good couple of performances as well. I think he actually didn't even practice the last day. I don't know if he even played in the game because his first 2 days of practice apparently more so good. He felt comfortable about what he had done there. Mafe from Minnesota off the edge, another guy that was impressive. Logan Hall flashed a little bit from Houston as well. And so I'm guessing most people came away more impressed with the interior defensive line and kind of hand down 4-3 end group exiting this week because they were really impressive.
It looks like there's a couple of guys that might fit. Last year I think we were struggling to kind of identify guys that would be more those 4-eye, 5-tech types. I think this class has a few more choices to choose from, if you will, of guys that the Steelers would like, along with a guy or two that would fit as a true kind of nose tackle. Now, I obviously don't think the Steelers are going to draft a true nose tackle early in this thing, but I think you get past the third round or so. I think everything's on the table, especially when it comes to a position like that. So that that's a takeaway. That not a bad defensive line class overall here. Another thing that stuck out to me is, you go into this week excited to see a guy like Boston College's Zion Johnson, and more from a guard aspect, but. Man, it was kind of clear that the onus on him this past week was, can you play center? And I think by the time the game rolled around there, and you watch the game in whole, and you go back and you watch the one-on-one drills there, I thought he represented himself real well as a guy that really hasn't, I guess, done much at center overall. And it kind of makes you wonder, are our teams really looking at him as a center more so maybe than a guard, or is it just you wanted to see your position flexibility? We know what you can do at guard kind of thing.
Yeah, it might be both. He's a little on the short side, but he's got great length and great size overall. And I know to preface, people are going to turn their nose up at the conversation when we hear about guards converting to center. But I don't hold what Kendrick Green did or did not do against Zion Johnson or any other player. It's always case by case. And I really wouldn't even compare the two guys. Johnson's bigger, he's stronger, he's much more technically sound, he's longer. So I think, people shouldn't even really focus on that stuff too much. And the first thing I would look at with Johnson is just, can he play? Before we talk about position switches and stuff like that, just does he have the tools to play? And undoubtedly, to me, he does. And so really well-coached guy and good interview. I know that I think Jonathan and Tyler and those guys got to speak with him and talk to him. And he grew up a Steelers fan. And he was coached by Marquise Pouncey's O-line coach at Florida. And so there's a little bit of connection there. But Johnson's just a good player who's athletic. He can combo block. He's technically sound. He's got good balance, a good base, a good anchor. I did the report on him that went up midweek. And so before we even get into the weeds about guard versus center, even tackle, he played some left tackle at BC, just to evaluate the talent. Can this guy play? And to me, this guy can undoubtedly play.
You guys talked to him too, didn't you?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't get a chance to personally. I saw those guys talking to Zion. That's Jonathan, and I think Tyler were as well. And so really good guy, they said, and Steelers fan, and just had, a lot of good things to say about Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. And, he's going to be probably a second half of the first round, early second round kind of guy.
Yeah, it's a little tricky for pick 20. I don't think it's unreasonable to say he's worth a look there at pick 20 for Pittsburgh. I think he came into the week. I put an early round 2 grade on him in my report just from a tape standpoint, but you factor in some of the, maybe character stuff that seems really positive for him and things like that. And the really strong week he had in Mobile, he's probably someone that's bumped his stock up into that, mid to late first round conversation.
And we've seen over the years how centers and guards just kind of get pushed down in this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, does he become a guy that deserves serious consideration at 20?
Yeah, I think he does. I think the talent and the play is warranted for a team that needs to get serious about upgrading its offensive line more aggressively than probably what they did last year. And so, is he, I'm not going to say I'm going to declare him the guy today. No, I'm not going to do that. That'd be kind of foolish for me to do. But is he in that mix? I think he is. All right, Dave, I don't want to bury the lead here when it comes to the Senior Bowl discussion. Of course, we had to talk quarterbacks considering the names that were down there, all but essentially one of the top quarterbacks. That's Matt Corral, who's not eligible for this game, participated at the Senior Bowl. That's Kenny Pickett. That's Malik Willis. That's Sam Howell, Carson Strong. You guys know the names. And so there's certainly going to be a lot of buzz about who Tomlin was watching and talking to and things like that, and Art Rooney being down there and those kinds of things. How much stock do you put into that kind of, I don't know if you want to call it fanfare, but just that extra stuff about who Tomlin was watching and the buzz, and the Steelers will take both Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett at the same time, apparently, based on the reports we were reading.
Hey, I'm here for it, man. If you can get both those quarterbacks there, both in the first round, have at it, man. I'd be fine with two quarterbacks in the first round and trying to figure out which one maybe could be the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger. Look, I mean, we're gonna continue as long as Mike Tomlin at least is the head coach of this team. We're gonna come out of every Senior Bowl moving forward with this is undoubtedly the guy that the Steelers love, kind of thing. Now, in the defense of the, I got to stack my reports consistently here, or make sure I put them in order here. The Steelers love Malik Willis. Look, I mean, here's the thing. I don't think the Steelers give one iota damn about who sees what when they go to all-star games, when they go to pro days. I think they go and they get their business done and let everybody else kind of play with the Blues Clues from there. Look, in today's instant media society, how do you even hide any of that stuff anyway? You know,
and trying to hide this probably does yourself a disservice, because then you can't do the things you want to do and talk to the people you want to talk to.
Right. So let everybody else figure that out, as far as, and people saying, I don't believe in today's NFL there's smoke screens or we're going to show a lot of interest in this guy to maybe get another team to take him or look, if other teams are doing that based on what other teams are doing, they're doing it wrong. You have to evaluate these players and then make a decision at who's available and who you like and all. Now, within that, we had I guess you could call it a wire-to-wire leader last year with the whole Najee Harris type thing. Before that, I mean, you could probably go back year after year. I mean, even back to Devin Bush, and really the thing about Devin Bush was the fact that people thought, well, they had a lot of interest in him, but no way would Devin Bush be on the board when the Steelers picked it.
20 that year. It was 20 that year.
20 that year. That, it was okay. Well, the interest is there, but no way are they going to get him. Well, they ended up liking him enough that they moved up, to the number 10 spot to get him. I will say this. I think there are 3 quarterbacks that were down in Mobile that the Steelers are trying to do their due diligence on as much as possible. One of them, they probably have that file almost wrapped up in Kenny Pickett because he's been right there at their own back door for the last several years. The other 2, I think, being Sam Howell and Malik Willis. To me, it feels like knowing that the Steelers spent time with Willis's parents. That's not uncommon. I don't think if you have interest in a player, especially with the Steelers in general, and especially if his parents were in Mobile, why wouldn't you take time to go get the Tomlin visit, if you will? And yeah, you want to know as much as possible as you can about this kid. I don't know if Howell's parents were there or not, but if they were, it wouldn't have shocked me to have, some sort of meeting with the Howell parents out in the concourse, if you will, there. So do I think there is some level of more than passing interest the Steelers have in a guy like Malik Willis? Absolutely. I think there's some interest there. I think there's interest in, and you could probably even add Ritter into this as well too. But I really, really think if you're looking at top end of the class and potentially maybe spending a 1st round draft pick on a quarterback, if I'm down in Mobile, if I'm Tomlin and company, and by the way, I'll let you rattle off all the people from the Steelers that were there this week, but why wouldn't you do your due diligence to get to know Malik Willis as good as you possibly could and get to know his parents as well too?
Right, especially for the coaching side of things, because the front office side of things, those guys have been watching and scouting and evaluating those guys throughout the entire, fall and winter. For the coaching staff, they're a lot newer to this because they're just coming off the season, and so they're trying to play catch up, learn about these guys. And Tomlin has that bigger personality where, of course, he's going to talk to players and their families and have those kind of, unique and fun conversations. So I try not to put too much stock into that. I mean, you're right. There is obvious interest there, and as there should be, considering the big need Pittsburgh has right now. It's just hard to say anything definitive right now. I think trying to say that they're going to draft this guy and if this guy's on the board, they will not pass on him, especially with how many conflicting reports we've gotten. makes it all kind of impossible to try to wade through and really judge at this point. I will say, I know there was some commentary about the fact that Art Rooney, team president Art Rooney II, was there. And I don't have it in all my notes, but I did see him there in 2018. I went back and looked at my notes. So this is not a brand new thing for him. I imagine he's probably there in some capacity in most years. And another element to consider about Tomlin is that on that rainy day on Wednesday, when it rained throughout the entire practice, a lot of coaches and scouts, they're kind of huddled. They're in the press box. They're under, concourses and overhangs and stuff like that. Not many guys on the field, but Mike Tomlin was one of those guys who was on the field the entire time. So it's a bit more obvious because he's just out there on the field in the elements and really getting near the action. And so I think people pay attention to that a bit more.
But he usually is, isn't he?
Right. Yeah, he is. Yeah. But my point is in terms of the public perception of it, because I think Wednesday was like, oh my God, Tomlin's watching Malik Willis so much. And because, well, he's throwing the ball, so he's going to watch the play. It's also just because Tomlin's out there and one of the few NFL guys that was on that field that weren't obviously coaching that practice, because a lot of other coaches seem to be kind of away from the ring.
I mean, year in, year out. I mean, I tell you what, and I probably tweet this out every year, Mike Tomlin loves the process.
Oh, yeah.
He absolutely loves the process. So he is so easy to, because of him and his he's easy to spot in all these type situations, period, because he is the coach that's usually down on the field and easy to spot at the pro days and talking to the players and all like that. That's who he is, because Mike Tomlin absolutely loves to probably mixing it up with players down there in the drills and that kind of stuff there. So, that aspect is just something that's kind of a given. The big story would be, why isn't Mike Tomlin down on the field?
Right. It felt like he was a coach because he was standing like so close to the D-line drills the one day. It felt like he was like a Jets coach, because he was just like right there, just really wanting to get in on the action. And that's great. And that's not a negative or a positive. It's just the reality. I think it's a positive overall. But I'm just saying, like, people are going to watch Tomlin more because he's so obviously close to the action. And on that particular day, that rainy day, one of the few guys kind of not caring about the rain. And so people are going to pay attention to him because he's like the only guy to look at.
I think it was termed the worst kept secret in Mobile this week is Mike Tomlin's love for Malik Willis. How would you were down there, how would you respond to somebody posing that to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that inside information, so I don't know what other people have or do not have. It felt a touch strong. Like, I thought Willis had a good week down there. There's no question about that. I think all these quarterbacks, kind of held their own. And I thought Willis, that Wednesday practice where he got a ton of buzz, given the context of the elements, the rain, the wind, the newness, the system, all that kind of stuff, I thought he had a good day. But I don't think it was like this incredible practice that was, one for the ages, the way that some made it out to be. I do think there's a reaction and a tendency for people to go down to the Senior Bowl to want to make these big, bold proclamations based on one practice or just a couple of plays, just because it's the sexy thing to do. It gets some clicks, it drives some buzz, and
get some tweets, get some retweets that way.
For sure. And so, again, I'm not trying to say that Willis performed poorly. I thought he had a good day for sure. And, I thought that Wednesday practice, he was impressive overall. But I do think some of the reaction to all the quarterbacks' performance, but especially his, was probably a touch too strong, just based off a select number of plays.
I made that the subject of one of my terrible takes last week was the buzz about the Steelers. Worst kept secret. Right now at the Senior Bowl is Mike Tomlin and his love for Malik. Well, look, I mean, you start putting what out there. The Steelers certainly could potentially use a quarterback, and Mike Thomas talked about mobility and all like that.
Right.
To kind of just sum that up, could I see Malik Willis being kind of the wire to wire guy that say Najee Harris was last year? Would it shock me? No. Would it shock me if people from here until the actual draft happens make Malik Willis the Steelers' first round pick in every mock draft they do? No, I wouldn't begrudge anybody from doing that from this point. But there is a whole lot of this process that's left to play out. That's just part of the process there. I'm sure it'll be interesting to watch the pro Pickett portion of the fan base, the pro Malik portion of the fan base, the pro Howell portion of the fan base, and the pro anything but those three guys portion go at it the rest of the offseason here. I'll tell you this at this point of the process right now, there are two quarterbacks now I know a heck of a lot about after watching tape and research and all that like that. One of them I obviously knew going into this thing, that was Carson Strong. The other one coming out of this thing now after watching a lot of tape is Malik Willis. Those are the two that I know the most about. And then Howell and Pickett, not too terribly far behind those two. So I got some more film to watch on those. What was your takeaway? Because you purposely said, I want to wait until I get to the Senior Bowl to learn, because you didn't know a lot about these guys going into it. You watched obviously a little bit of tape to prep on this. What was your takeaway on this quarterback class coming back from Mobile now?
Yeah, I thought they did a good job, and it's so tricky for me to evaluate those quarterbacks, especially negatively, because of all the things working against them. A new system, new teammates, new receivers. You don't have chemistry with those guys. The offensive line is brand new, trying to play together. You factor in the elements that were always a factor down there in Mobile this week. You know, there's a lot of things to work against these guys. You're working on our center more. There was a lot of botched snaps and exchanges with Willis and Pickett, and I think Howell had one and stuff like that. So I try to give these guys a bit of grace here. With Willis, you just kind of felt burst and zip is kind of the velocity is the word that I kind of use to describe him. The second gear he has as a runner in open space, the ability to kind of turn that dial up and really run away from guys, which we knew he was a scrambler and athletic, so it's kind of checking that box twice. But to see it in person is a bit different than just watching a highlight or something on TV or something like that. The velocity on his passes, the accuracy on some of those out routes and sideline throws, to me, is impressive. The thing he'll have to work on, though, is that you want to see him throw from a more consistent base more often. There was one throw, left flat, dude's wide open, there's no pressure, and he crosses his feet as he makes a throw. Now, the throw was complete. It wasn't off target or anything like that. The dude has arm talent, and that gets the ball there. But you do want to see him, when he's able to, be able to throw from a more consistent platform, because his lower body mechanics get kind of wonky sometimes when they don't have to be.
Right, and I think that's one thing that Corey and I taught. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to the.
I did. It was good, really good, really informative podcast.
Podcast I did with Corey. A lot of good information there. Mixing, like we like to do, right? Tape with some analytics in there and all. Here are my thoughts on watching, and I've watched a lot of all 22 now on Malik. Man, he can make some wow kind of plays, especially out of structure and all. I mean, he's definitely got, to me, he's got the arm strength, probably the best arm in this class as far as all areas of the field maybe go as a whole there. Accuracy, as Corey and I talked about, need some improvement there. He doesn't do a good job of deciphering, I don't think, what's against, what's on the other side of him. He needs a lot of work on understanding what he sees and the anticipation of throwing guys open. He tends to wait for them to get open, kind of thing, before. There's not a lot on tape that I've found so far of him with the anticipatory kind of throws, kind of the guy coming out of the break and the ball up on him kind of thing. To me, it's more of him reading the receivers more so than he's reading the defenses. On the flip side, I'd like to see him do more. He does seem to bail out of the pocket a little bit early at times with some kind of phantom type stuff there. I think he needs to learn to have more patience to kind of trust what might happen in some sort of rush situations there. Other things is when he does get outside of the pocket, I think he needs more patience to be able to first look down the field to see, what might be happening in the backyard football game, of guys being able to come open. Sometimes I think once he gets out of structure there, I think most of his concerns are, let me see if I can run with the football. And boy, can he run with the football.
Yeah, can you blame him though when you have the wheels that he does? Like it's most times his best asset and best choice in the moment.
I mean, at the NFL level, he's going to make those kind of plays. Now is he the kind of player that Lamar Jackson is out in space? No. But
the comp to him as a runner, I think Jalen Hurts is the name that I heard as a runner, which I think is fair because they're bigger guys that are athletic but aren't the juke you out of your shoes kind of guy that Lamar is.
I just think he needs from the lower body end of it too. Look, his mechanics in the pocket aren't great to me. There are some instances too when he does stay in the pocket. When he starts feeling the rush, instead of kind of stepping up into it, he likes to step back into it, step back. And then you see him use his arm way too much. He'll throw off he's got the arm to do it, but it does impact his accuracy and all. You'll see him throwing off of his back foot quite a bit. Long and short, my main takeaway when it comes to Willis, and specifically as it's related to this class and this class only, is he is the rawest of the bunch. There are a lot of exciting things. There's a lot of wow moments on tape, and there's a lot of, oh my God, moments on his tape as well too. He does have the highest, unknown ceiling, I think, of the ones, especially the guys that are probably going to be, first, second round type guys. I obviously haven't done, some of those, Bailey Zappi and those guys gone deep into their film there. But if there's a guy that has the highest upside, that I think it's him. But the problem is trying to project. Okay, this is what he is now. He has some room to develop. Can he be developed past that? Can he take to the learning? How will the understanding of the defenses and taking on the coaching of the better mechanics, how much further will it be able to take him? And I don't know. That's a magic question that if anybody had the answer to, they would just pick these guys out year by year and say, this is the guy that you need to go get here. But he is the most exciting as far as possible ceiling goes from this class. And I was thinking about this last night, Alex, as well too. When you go back and you think, and this is no boy, the Steelers have got to grab this kid kind of statement kind of thing here. I'm just trying to put it all into perspective here. When you go back to Ben Roethlisberger, and it's many years ago since he came out there, if you remember kind of the early knocks on him was big arm, can extend some plays, not the best, probably X's and O's kind of guy, liked his receivers college open, didn't do a good job of throwing guys open as much as he would throw to an open receiver, if that makes sense there. So there are some kind of passing similarities, I guess you could say, with a Roethlisberger coming out, with a Malik coming out. Now, obviously the size and all like that's different, and Malik's a more mobile guy than Roethlisberger is, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to be, several feet away from where your potential ceiling might be, as long as your core things will allow you to do some things in the NFL. Now, do I think whoever drafts this kid, I think the plan should absolutely be not to play him right away, because you're going to have to develop an offense around him that's easy for him to understand, right out of shoot. You're going to have to do things and then build him up in stages there. So I don't think he's a week one starter, but it will be fun to go through this process and learn more about Malik Willis, and then notate that to see how he develops 2-3 years into the NFL, if that makes sense.
Just from my snapshot of those couple days in Mobile, and again, I try not to make any big proclamations, although I know it's not the again the sexy thing to do. I thought the biggest thing he has to work on is his lower body mechanics, his overall footwork. I thought his decision making was actually pretty strong down in Mobile. Just in terms of taking care of the football, making good decisions, good reads. I thought he showed a good football IQ overall, given the newness and the difficulty of that situation. I will say in the game on Saturday, it was a bit frustrating that we didn't get to see him as much as a passer. Now, is that because the O-line struggled? I think there's an element of that. With receivers getting open, it's hard to tell without the benefit of the all 22. But the guy, I think he only had 11 passing yards in that game and ran for 60, including that end of the half run where I thought he might score. And Chad Muma made a great play to track him down. So I mean, obviously you got to watch the running aspect of him in the game, which is impressive and electric and exciting and an asset to him. But you kind of already knew that. In fact, you did already knew that was part of his game. And you just wish you could have seen more of him as a passer. Now, is that against him? Am I holding that against him? Maybe not because of the our guys getting open and stuff like that. But I wanted to learn more about him as a passer in that game. And I feel like I really got a great chance to do that. There were one or two throws where you saw that velocity and accuracy along the sideline, and so that was good. But I was wanting to see a bit more.
So from a passer standpoint, with him, you didn't see what maybe you wanted to see.
Well, in the game, at least, just from the game, because he threw the ball. He had 11 passing yards, I want to say, in that game. Is that accurate? I think that's at least at some point that's what he had.
Right.
He was running a lot, and again, I understand the line didn't protect super well, and the D lines were kind of winning on both sides of the National American team. So I get why he was running, and he's electric. And like the thing is, you don't want him always running, but the guy can run like few quarterbacks can, so it's hard to hold that against him. But that just kind of one note I came away with.
All right. I mean, how did he do how do you feel he did in the practices?
Yeah, like I said, I thought he did well. The other guys were watching him a bit more. We were kind of splitting up who was watching what position. I never had a day of the two where I was watching just the quarterbacks, but going back through some of the all 22, like I said, that Wednesday practice, the velocity, the decision making, the accuracy on some of the sideline throws, I thought were impressive, but the lower body mechanics seemed to be all over the place. And he can get away with that at liberty. He's going to have more trouble getting away with that consistently at the NFL level.
Have you had an opportunity to watch much tape on him yet?
No, I haven't. I was just kind of letting the Senior Bowl be the clean slate for a lot of these guys at the quarterback position, just to kind of get to know them without maybe being a little biased based on the tape I had already watched.
Okay, so what's kind of what are your feelings coming out of the Senior Bowl with him specifically?
Like I said, I think there's probably an element of a project to it. He'll need a good quarterback coach and probably need a year to learn. I think, in Pittsburgh, Mike Sullivan's a really strong, disciplined, good teacher. And so I think there's a good fit there. I think if he just cleans up the consistency from the lower body, half mechanically, he'll be in a good spot. So, of course, I need to go back and watch his Liberty tape and stuff like that. I have not really dove into that. So, again, that's why I say it's a snapshot. I'm not trying to use one or two practices as a proclamation for who I think he is as a player overall. I just want to be careful about that. But I thought just from what I watched in person, there's a lot to work with, obviously.
Do you think he, coming out of the Senior Bowl, do you think he's being overhyped or underhyped or hyped, perfectly?
Yeah. I think all these quarterbacks to a degree get overhyped because, like I said, people want to make their, I'm sure you probably saw the tweet. It was a throw on Wednesday. He rolled to his left and it was a good throw, but the guy was wide open. And the caption was, Malik Willis is just ridiculous. I don't know if you saw that tweet or not. And it was a good play, but it was one play, was wide open. It wasn't like that crazy of a play where it's like, oh my God, this is a ridiculous throw that only two quarterbacks can make it, So there's just a natural, I think, tendency for people who go down there and cover it to really want to hype these guys up. And just because it is a bit sexier to have those kind of takes.
Right.
I try to stay away from that.
Kenny Pickett, thoughts on Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, I thought it was steady. And again, on Wednesday, I'm going to ask the guys about that more because I think Jonathan was watching the quarterbacks or Tyler was watching the quarterbacks 1 or 2 days there. I thought just consistently he was a steady guy down there. And it sounds like his impact was coming more off the field in terms of the interview room and talking with coaches, post-practice and demeanor and stuff like that. That's reportedly, I have no special insight to this, but reportedly that seems to be where Pickett was shining the most.
And how?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see him standing next to people because I wanted to see what he just looked like up close and personal, like even out of pads. Like the media day, I saw Bailey Zappi, and I thought for a second he was media because like he was that tiny of a guy. He looks like a lacrosse player more than an NFL quarterback or potential NFL quarterback. And so I have to go back and probably check some of my notes on Howell. I don't think I had any major takeaway there. The arm looked live overall. Again, I didn't see any negative stuff too much from really any of these guys, Howell included. But I probably didn't come away with as firm of a takeaway of Howell's game as I did with a guy like Malik Willis.
All right. Carson Strong, not the best week.
Yeah, I was surprised with the deep ball. It hung a lot more than what I thought it did, both in the game and then I think on the Tuesday practice. Because I know he has a good arm, but it just that deep ball seemed to hang in the air. And I don't know if that's a chemistry thing and he doesn't know timing. He's trying to let it hang a bit more to let his receiver have a chance at the ball or what. But my major takeaway, two of them, I thought he commanded the huddle well, though. I thought just controlling things and kind of running the show. I thought that was impressive. But the negative was that deep ball hung more. And then, of course, there's the knee issue, which he seemed to be very open about. And if Jonathan spoke with him at Mel, wrote a great article that kind of sums up the history of that very complicated knee issue.
All right, Ritter,
I thought showed good zip and good velocity. He was kind of throwing some guys open, some of the things you talked about earlier. And so, I don't know. I don't have as firm a valuation either on him, but I thought there were a couple moments where you really saw zip and accuracy and kind of throwing into those tight windows that a lot of other quarterbacks didn't do, especially on the more intermediate type routes.
I tell you, when you look at some of the advanced metrics that Zebra technology does there, and you compare, stuff like speed and spin rate and those kind of things. And then, average spin rate, highest spin rate, air miles an hour. And you take all those and you compare them to past Senior Bowl classes. These guys are pale in comparison to a lot of the recent ones, especially in some of these metrics go. It is we talked about this quarterback class going into it, how excited you guys were to go down there because these, all these names are were more known names than going into other Senior Bowls with quarterback classes. But it doesn't mean that this quarterback class was better, though, right?
Yeah, it's very rare to have basically all the top quarterbacks down in the Senior Bowl because usually there are underclassmen that come out and they're not eligible for it. Now, there was one of those guys this year, Matt Corral, who I even heard a friend of a friend say that the Steelers love Matt Corral and they're going to take Matt Corral. And so you have him and Willis and Pickett. So it all kind of becomes, you amplify everything, you hear nothing kind of thing to me. But it was rare besides Corral to have every other top quarterback be in Mobile. No one backed out because of injury or weren't eligible or whatever the case was. And so that was pretty unique, I thought, to this week.
All right. So really you didn't come away. I mean, do you at least come away with maybe thinking Pickett and Willis are 1A, 1B, whatever way?
For Pittsburgh or me personally?
Just in general quarterback ratings.
Yeah, my feeling is that in terms of and I don't want to forget about Corral because he's in that mix as well. And he just kind of gets forgotten about because he wasn't participating. Just as of today, I think Pickett, Willis might be fighting, and then I'll throw in Corral as well, might be fighting to be the top quarterback off of the board. I don't think it's going to be Howell. It's not going to be Strong. Ritter, I think it's going to be in that maybe next tier behind.
Did you just what Pickett did is kind of, I guess what I'm getting is, did we learn anything new about Pickett kind of as part of this process?
Yeah, I think from our scout perspective, not a ton. I thought that Wednesday practice in the rain, and there's a hand size thing, which we can talk about and really probably not get anywhere with our discussion on. I thought he struggled a bit in the rain. I thought most of those quarterbacks struggled early on. Even the receivers were dropping everything on air in warmups, and so he didn't do great in that moment initially, but none of the quarterbacks really did. I thought Willis was probably the best though in that rain, which probably is why he's getting as much hype as he is.
All right, wide receivers group. You got a chance and have an article up on Romeo Doubs, which certainly interests me. And I have talked a lot about Romeo kind of throughout this process here, dating back to a couple of years ago there, and talked specifically about his character too, and talking about and obviously I've never met the guy or talked to the guy, but a lot of the things that I've read from people that I trust who cover that team, you know, what's your takeaway on Romeo Doubs and name the other two maybe top wide receivers that were down in Mobile this week?
Well, I do want to take a moment just to backtrack and just mention who all was there from Pittsburgh that I saw, just to kind of give that very nerdy lay of the land. So Tomlin obviously was there. Everyone knows that. Art Rooney was there for at least the first day. He was out on the field. And so then again, he had been there at least one time before, according to my notes. So this is not a brand new thing for him. I saw a lot of Matt Canada, Mike Sullivan, Kevin Colbert. Those guys were on the field basically every single day, at least of the two practices that I was able to attend. Other guys who I saw who were kind of sitting up in the bleachers watching, that included Brandon Hunt, Omar Khan, scouts Dave Pettit, Mark Bruner, Dan Colbert, Dennis McInnes, who's their Blesto scout, senior scout Rick Caprice, Dan Rooney, player personnel coordinator Dan Rooney, Cole Marco, who replaced Samir Suleiman as kind of the football administration coordinator, CBA type stuff. That's Cole Marco, relatively new hire. Aiden Hennessy Nyland, I believe that was him. He's our team operations coordinator. I think one of their analysts, Tosin Kazim, he's got a scouting background.
You're just showing off now.
Yeah. And Will Britt, I couldn't find Will Britt until I found a photo of him at the airport. And so Will Britt's their new football analyst to replace Jay Whitmire, who left for the Jets. It was one guy who I could not place the face of. I didn't see a lot of other coaches, which I usually do see down there. Again, I saw Sullivan. I didn't see really any other coaches. I'm sure they could have been there and I might have missed them. Also, they could have been at the Shrine Bowl because those things kind of overlapped a bit more than they usually do. But I will say I didn't see as many coaches. I just saw Canada and Sullivan. I think that was besides Tomlin, of course. I didn't see any of those guys. In my watching.
Jerry Olsowski or
No.
any defensive line coaches or anything like that, huh?
No, and again, they could have been there. I might have missed them. Okay. The way the Senior Bowl set
you
up
didn't
now,
miss them. If they were there, you would have seen them. Alex would have seen them. You're probably pointing them out like Rain Man or something. But
yeah, everyone else is watching the field, have binoculars, trying to watch who the scouts are for Pittsburgh. No, there is more separation. In past years, you were kind of all lumped together. Scouts and media and like even fans were all kind of sitting together. This year, they were kind of separated. Scouts sat on one side, media sat on the other side. So it was in fact harder to try to see those guys, but. That's the list of guys that I have there.
All right. Wide receivers, Doubs.
Yeah, Doubs, really good guy to talk to. Kind of everything that you said. Now that was at the podium I had spoken to, so it was kind of a group conversation. It wasn't a one-on-one, but there weren't a whole lot of people around Romeo Doubs. And so just a really good, soft-spoken guy. Have the article on him this morning for Steelers Depot. And then from an on-field perspective, he's built well. He's strong. He's muscular. Fills out his frame well. He's quick out of his cuts. I think he's got more kind of elusiveness and agility and burst than a lot of guys of his frame do. Has good hands. Struggled a bit on Wednesday in team drills catching the ball, but early on, a lot of guys are dropping passes. Doubs was catching everything early on and on air and one-on-one type of stuff. Other receivers who impressed, Christian Watson from North Dakota State. That's going to be Tyler's guy, so we'll talk about that with him on Wednesday.
I thought I was going to have to get a restraint. I thought we were going to have.
Still.
I thought Watson was going to have a restraining order against Watson here. Look, I just finished up doing
contextualization on him, right?
Yeah, contextualization on him that I'll post either today or tomorrow. I think of 58, all 58. I found all 58 targets, Alex, if you can believe that. All 58 of them on tape, and I charted them and contextualized them. So I don't want to tease what might come away with, from him is, but I mean, obviously he's one of the top kind of deep receivers in his class, but he was a lot more than that at North Dakota State too. I found out as well there. But your takeaway was he was probably one of the top, 2 or 3 wide receivers at the Senior Bowl.
The best. I'd probably say the top receiver is probably the general consensus in mine as well. The height, weight, speed, winning the ball, finding the ball downfield, winning downfield, making some of those really difficult catches, adjusting the football. Had that one in the game Saturday where Pickett threw it low and away, and Watson had to dive for it. Then had the presence of mind to get up and keep running under NFL rules, not college rules, where other guys kind of stopped around him. And so just kind of tape. I thought Watson was the best guy.
All right, we're getting a little bit late in this thing, but give me kind of about 10 names overall that you came away and said, man, these guys are Steeler potential guys. These are guys that I probably need to learn a lot more about. Can you?
Oh man,
can you piece together maybe about 5 each on offense and defense, maybe?
Yeah, I'll try. I should have had a better list together. I didn't do that in our lengthy pre-production meeting.
Roger McCreary, one of those guys. Is he a first-round guy and first or second-round guy? Is that a guy maybe the Steelers have some interest in?
Yeah, people will knock him for his size. He's got short arms, came in under, I think, 30-inch arms, but a really good man-to-man corner. And so the question will be, are you comfortable with him on the outside? I personally am, but there's just, some people I think are going to limit him and because of his size. But overall, he's covered the best of the best. Had a good week down there. Damon Clark from LSU, linebacker, really smart, heady guy, good athlete, block deconstruction, staying clean in the run game. Those linebackers on there were impressive, whether you're talking Clark, who Tomlin seemed to have a conversation with as well, Chad Muma, the Anderson kid from Montana State, really good athlete, was like a quarterback and got moved over to linebacker. Some of those guys were interesting. Darian Beavers from Cincinnati, really big, 250-pound guy, well put together. Some of the edge guys I thought were impressive. Jesse Luketa from Penn State, good athlete, good burst, 260 pounds, good swim move, a little tight ankled, but really good burst off the ball. D'Angelo Malone from Western Kentucky, a long, lean guy, like 6'3 3/4, 234. Long arms though, but has a lot of power. A lot of those lanky guys don't play with power. He does. He's got violent hands. He plays well in the run game. Has length to force 8 fumbles. So Western Kentucky, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year down there in Conference USA. So that was the guy that I was pretty impressed with. I'll go a little biased here with Connor Hayward, the fullback.
Oh, he's going to end up a Steeler.
You think?
Yeah, there's no way around it. Whether it be 6th, 7th round. Look, he's obviously I think listed as tight end, but it's at his size, weight, and his skill set and all, he's going to be that Swiss Army knife. You're not going to put him a lot, I don't think, on the end of the line of scrimmage to block a base 4-3 defensive end. I think you're asking for problems there, but he is a guy too that you could hand the football off to and probably get get something more than you get out of Derek Watt in that aspect to him. And man, you just look at some of the catches he made at Michigan State and even the bowl game, the one in the end zone over the middle of the field. I mean, he's got good hands. He's probably a guy that can hit the field on special teams right out and shoot. His last name's Hayward. He's got that going for you. So not a build like when you look at per se tight end, but if you're looking for that kind of jack of all kind of Swiss Army knife dude that you draft kind of 6th, 7th round kind of player, there's no way that you can't point to that guy, especially with his last name and bloodline. Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah, he'll be an H-back, cut his teeth on special teams, kind of similar to Derek Watt, but Hayward offers a lot more offensive value because he has that more running back background there in Michigan State. You can actually hand him the ball with some confidence. Sure, or boots in the flat and feel like he's going to make some plays and stuff like that. Stuff you probably are much more limited doing with Derek Watt. So he did well on one-on-one anchor and pass protection. Special teams background, he has that. Talked about he'd done that, throughout his career. So that's all old hat to him. Other guys who impressed, like I said, Zion Johnson. I thought Abraham Lucas from Washington State, just watching some of the, all 22 going back on him. Didn't hear much about him from other people, but I thought him, the tackle, played right tackle. Thought he had a good week overall. Trying to go back to
Abraham
the list.
Lucas, 6'0", 322. So he's a 34 and 5/8 inch arms, 81.
Good size.
Good size. Nice hands, 10 and 3/8. Boy, he has no problem getting into the lobster, does he? So he's going to be a true tackle, right, Abraham Lucas?
Yeah, I think so. At least they were playing him at tackle. He might have gotten some snaps inside. They moved those guys around a bit, but I thought just kind of watching some of the all 22, he had a good week. And then, not that he had the best week that was up and down, but one of the largest people I've ever seen in person, Daniel Laley from Minnesota, legit 6'8", 6'9", 387. I saw him there during the media day talking to somebody, and just, he's a large individual. I felt smaller than I usually do. Standing near him. Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa. He got a lot of buzz for just all the fights he was getting into basically every single day. And that's his game. I mean, anyone who watched his tape in Northern Iowa knew he'd play like that. And so there was some debate about, is it too aggressive and stuff like that? I love it. That's who he is. That's, what's the saying? Dance with whoever brought you. I forget how it goes, but I mean, that's his style. And so I think, there's going to be a little bit of trying to rein that in and make that, not cost penalties and things like that, but he'll go higher than the way Spencer Brown did. I mean, this could be a potential first-round pick, one of the top tackles off the board.
Boye Mafe.
Yeah, really good week down there. Came on strong at the end. Had a great Senior Bowl performance. He's explosive. He's strong. Good hand use. Obviously, I don't really see him being in play for Pittsburgh, but he'll be probably one of the better and top pass rushers to come off after the top, tier 1 guys of Hutchinson and Thibodeau, and there's the Purdue guy as well. I mean, those are top 15 picks, but maybe bottom first round that could be Mafe.
You think that early for him? Is that the feel
Just
that you
from
got?
the stuff I heard, yeah, that's the feel that I got. I could be off on that. I still don't have a great feel for maybe where some people are projecting him, but yeah, I think some of those guys could move up for sure. Some other guys who,
some of those edge guys that project more, that don't have that extreme length to them, and he is 6'3.5", 255 pounds, 33 3/8 arm. So he's got some nice, as far as arm length goes, not bad. But he played on his feet quite a bit at Minnesota. Went and looked at some tape on him there. I guess, long story short, those kind of guys with those measurables they're like guards and centers. It feels like they get pushed down a little bit.
Yeah, but he has good size. I mean, he's a little short, I guess, but 33, inch arms and 250 pounds. I mean, that's not going to limit him at all, I don't think, at the NFL level.
You think is he definitely a 3-4 guy? Is that your takeaway, or is he a guy that you think could be a base 4-3?
I think he's probably scheme versatile. He's got good size to him. He carries that weight well. And again, in this world of these 3-4 versus 4-3 kind of being blurred, it probably matters less than it used to.
All right, so I'll go ahead and write down Baltimore Ravens are drafting him.
Yeah, Baltimore for sure, like second round steal, 100%. A couple other guys I'll mention here just in the secondary. Probably my main question this year is going to be Jalen Petre from Baylor. I put on one game of his before I left for the Senior Bowl. Was impressed. He played that star position at Baylor, so kind of that nickel rover type of box kind of guy. He told me, I talked to him for a couple minutes. The teams are looking at him as either a slot corner or a strong safety. I don't know which position I think he's going to work best in, but I think he could work either. Just a really physical dude, kind of like that Mike Hilton, but a bit bigger overall. Good coverage skills, just a smart guy. Played good coaching under Dave Aranda down there at Baylor whenever he got that job there coming over from LSU. So just versatile guy that can cover, can hit, can run. And then a couple other DBs. Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati got buzzed this week. I didn't watch him too much personally, but I know the guys who did, and he had a good performance in the game, I believe. And then Joshua Williams from Fayetteville State. A lot of small school guys down there that are really well put together. He's got good size, former receiver, relatively new to playing corner. Didn't start playing corner till his senior year of high school, but good athlete, physical, comes to balance as a tackler though, and just has good length, good size overall, can cover.
Jake Ferguson, the best tight end there?
Was he the best tight end there?
You probably didn't pay too much attention to the tight ends as a whole.
Well, I was watching the linebackers, and so I saw some of the one-on-one drills. I think that Greg Dulrich from UCLA was a good route runner with strong hands and good size overall. Bellinger from San Diego State is a well-rounded guy who I think won one of the practice awards. So I don't know if Ferguson was the best. He had a good performance in the game, but I think that the Dulrich guy from UCLA was probably the best tight end I watched down there. Maybe McBride. McBride made a good catch as well.
What about running back and maybe the best kind of mid to late round running back that could stay on the field on third down potentially?
Yeah, who was the one guy that I saw down there?
The Florida kid?
His name here. Yeah, I was going to say Damian Pierce from Florida, who Jonathan knew. He has some background with him. And he runs hard. He runs angry. I kind of compared him to a Damian Harris kind of guy from up in New England. But, can anchor and pass pro, had some good reps there. Got to catch the ball more consistently, a bit cleaner, but a guy that was really productive at Florida. I think 100 carries and 16 touchdowns. I don't know how he only got 100 carries in Florida. It was kind of underused down there, but kind of has that angry downhill mentality that impressed me.
All right, and you were high, I think, going into the Senior Bowl, maybe on a Tyson Anderson, the safety out of Toledo. Did any thoughts after going down and seeing him some?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance. It's sometimes hard to watch those safeties because coverages are so limited, stuff like that. I saw one clip of him making a good play in one-on-ones. I did talk to him, had an interview posted with him, just a really level-headed guy. You don't talk to too many 22-year-olds, and the first thing you say, what you want to do with your first NFL check is I want to save, invest, and open up a trucking company with my family, get my CDL, like stuff like that. And so it was just a unique guy to talk to. Steelers fan as well. Group of Steelers fan got to meet Mike Tomlin, so he said that was a cool moment. But good size, and he's versatile. He played all over at Toledo. maybe misused even a bit. I saw some kind of Rockets fan saying he probably wasn't used to his best ability. So that's a guy to watch, probably a mid-round type of player. And then specialist as well. The punter from Penn State Stout was booming him. I think same with the Georgia kid. So it was specialists as well. Don't discount those guys, although Pittsburgh probably not in the market to draft one again.
All right, we're about an hour, I guess, 20 into this now. So we'll have a round table talking a whole heck of a lot more about senior ball. So I think that did we tease people enough there, you think?
Yeah, I thought today was just kind of good to get my thoughts out, because Wednesday I want to shut up a bit because I'm talking too much as it is, and let those guys really go through their evaluations and what their takeaways were of Senior Bowl week.
All right. Shall we get to some reader emails here and start closing this down?
Yep, you're taking my line. I leave the podcast for 1 week and you're stealing my lines. Yeah, let's get to emails and close out today's show, Dave.
What'd you think about that? Boy, had some great shows while you were gone, huh? Dave the scheduler didn't do too bad of it. I didn't know what way I was going to go. Obviously, I knew I wanted to have a round table with Mel and Josh and Owen. That just turned out absolutely fantastic. And came across Corey, on the web there, and his charting project. And obviously, with the quarterbacks being a focus, I definitely want to hit on that. And he's got some good stuff on Twitter, some all 22 stuff from the practices as well too. So that's a great follow, even though he's a Browns fan.
Yeah, I loved it all except for the dating app part you're talking about. Me, could have done without that part. But other than that, I thought it was a fantastic job by you and the guys.
All right, appreciate it. All right, let's get into some of the emails here. Chuck Griffith writes in, Blues Clues update for 2022 Steelers draft class. Just like the Royal Rumble puts us on the road to the WrestleMania, it seems that the Senior Bowl puts us officially on the road to the NFL draft. Now that we are on that road, what did you learn from the Steelers selections last year of Najee, Freiermuth, Green, Dan Moore, Buddy, Loudermilk, Roche, Norwood, and Harvin to update the Blues clues for this upcoming draft? Which clues were reinforced? Which clues were modified? Any new clues? Any deleted clues? Boy, that's a broad base question there, Chuck. Here's the thing when it comes to the Steelers and the Blues clues. I think you know it when you see it, kind of thing. There's obviously the measurable aspect. I think there's a whole, was he a team captain? Who was at the pro day? Is it a need? Combine numbers twitchy enough and all like that. But as much as we get into these, meeting with and dinners at pro days and those kind, as much as we try to, go through and use the Blues clues kind of systems, as we've said, guys like Loudermilk. I mean, we didn't even have a profile done on, as embarrassing as that is, Who else? I mean, Dan Moore, did either of us really think at any given time? Kendrick Green for sure. I mean, there was no way. Kendrick Green wasn't even on my choice of guards or centers for this team during the draft, process and all like that. So did we learn, how did the Blues clues go last year, and Alex, and how does it modified and all like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's, as you said, a broad question that's really hard to answer here in just a couple of moments. I think it generally stayed on track, though. Again, the Steelers don't really hide their interest too much. Najee was, you said, kind of a wire-to-wire type of guy. Pat Freiermuth, we knew their interest in him. Even someone like Presley Harvin, when Danny Smith goes to your pro day, works you out, and you do well in bad weather, kind of made you think that there was going to be some more than just smoke there. So yeah, as you get later in the draft, it is hard to, not get hit on everything. The Loudermilks, the Norwoods, the Greens, you don't always have great feelings about those guys. But at the top, they want Power 5. They're going to be at pro days. They're going to really show obvious interest in some of those top round guys. And so that's what makes Malik Willis interesting. Will they be at his pro day this year? I assume that they will be, but that's going to be a big box to check or not check this year. And then there's the small school aspect or smaller school aspect to it. They haven't drafted a non-Power 5 first-round pick since Ben in 2004. So what do you do with that information? So I think generally, though, the history and the track kind of stayed on track through the 2021 draft class.
All right, Dent Burnett writes in, hey guys, would like to get your view on how a player such as Kyle Trask would fare if he were a quarterback prospect in this year's draft. Trask 2020 passing stats in Florida were virtually identical to Kenny Pickett's senior season. Carson Strong's stats are close, but he threw 7 fewer touchdowns than Trask. No other quarterback prospect comes close in regard to touchdowns and passing yardage. Obviously, passing stats aren't everything. We're all aware of the Steelers' desire of finding a mobile quarterback. Nevertheless, I find it difficult envisioning any of these quarterbacks with the possible exception of Pickett as being a true day one material. Man, Dan, it's, I understand the reasoning of wanting to compare. Look, Trask, I'll tell you this, Trask wasn't, obviously as mobile. I think one of the things that attracted Alex to going more with a guy like Mac Jones was Jones' mobility, right?
Well, I thought he was more mobile than what people thought he was. Like, everyone thought he was a statue that couldn't move at all. I thought there was functional mobility within the pocket, which to me is still more important than mobility outside the pocket. So I thought overall his accuracy to me was probably the biggest thing of why I liked him. And then arm I thought was better than what people thought. But the mobility, I thought he was a functional athlete, which he generally showed this year, including at yesterday's Pro Bowl.
That was funny. That was at least a lighter moment there. How would you compare Kyle Trask to Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, those comparison questions are always tough. That's one reason why we're doing the grading scale this year. Do I think people answer those in more concrete, absolute terms? I like Pickett more than Trask. I didn't think Trask really had the overall arm to drive the football. I know there are some arm questions with Pickett as well. So I don't know how to best compare it. Pickett's more athletic overall, just a better prospect to me.
Look, Dent, the word, it's February 7th today. We are just scratching the surface, learning a lot about a lot of these guys here. I got a long way to go. Like I said, I know the most right now about Carson Strong and Malik Willis. I know enough about Kenny Pickett that I'm dangerous. I want to go back and look at some things with Pickett and Sam Howell as far as creating out of structure, those kind of things there. But we're a long ways away from any kind of definitive kind of talk when it comes to. I will say this, and this quarterback class isn't as I kind of thought this going in. It isn't as attractive as previous quarterback classes.
Yeah, no, it's not. And again, it's not even like it's partly a little early, obviously, but it's also partly I just have a great way to compare, just trying to think back, compare and contrast without having a grading scale. So we never put a grade on Trask. We'll have one on Pickett. We do have one on Pickett, but I don't have one that compares to Kyle Trask. But I like Pickett more.
Gareth from Poole, England writes in, whilst listening to Dave and Tom the other day. Oh, by the way, I did have Tom on. Were you out of town for that or no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Monday. So we
Okay.
did the first part with me. We recorded over the weekend. And you had Tom, who always does a great job breaking down the draft.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Tom in all that as well too. Boy, Tom had a moment's notice, boy, and he's good at rattling off about the offensive line and stuff like that, especially talking about some of the stuff that he had watched, from the Shrine Bowl games and all like that. We've got him some tape on the offensive line guys from the Senior Bowl, so probably some more coming from him in that area there. He says the other day on the podcast talking to Tom, I was wondering what process was for allocating the draft profiles in one of the teams particular if one of the team is particularly interested in a prospect, do they get to do the draft profile? Also, would you consider including different options from the team on a particular prospect such as Willis or Pickett? So far, what players are in play for pick 20 by the Steelers? That's impossible to answer. This is what you think of the Steelers will do. However, do you have any personal favorites in the draft? He says, my draft crush so far is Travis Jones, defensive lineman. He looks the real deal, so will probably end up a Raven, he says. Also, just wanted to say your team provides amazing content and you have a hell of a team. I do have a hell of a team. And boy, if I didn't know that already, I know it after all the coverage at the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl on top of it there. Look, we have a very, very complicated system when it comes to deciding who does what on the draft profiles. Would you like to reveal it, Alex?
Oh, wow. Well, this is going to take a lot of charts. And no, it's the simplest thing. It's just a Google sheet, basically, and you sign up 2 at a time. And That's all it is.
It's who you want. It's who you beat.
Yeah.
Who you beat. Whoever else do.
First come, first serve.
Yeah. Now, obviously, people gravitate probably more to players that they know a lot about, especially early in the process. And there's some people like Owen, I think, will probably gravitate more to the cornerbacks and safeties because that's what he knows a lot about. Maybe some wide receivers. And, I think a guy like Tyler likes to do the wide receivers as well, too. Those kind of things there. So it all just kind of comes out in the wash. There's no really hard, here's the goal. Learn more about the players and learn more about trying to better in your scouting process throughout the off season there. And that, you just try to learn as much as you can about the players and present your findings as objectively as you can to the reader via draft profile.
Yeah, well said.
Let us go here now to Chandler Stroud. Morning, guys. Hope the Steelers Depot team is having a great week down in Mobile. Just got a two-parter here, as I'm sure you'll be asked these 1,000 times before the draft. But during this whole process, what three players would you guys say have been on the more impressing side overall? And what three would you possibly say are having a more disappointing side of things? Again, I hope the team is having a great week. Chandler, I mean, I could get Alex to think three guys that had a great week and three guys that have a down week. And, what does that mean overall in the process, Alex?
Well, I mean, obviously, we focus on winners and losers, and I don't have a great list for you. I think we just went through we just kind of recap the players that I thought played well overall. I don't know if there were any guys that really especially struggled. I thought some guys were in some difficult situations that might have struggled more. Sterling Weatherford from Miami, Ohio, was a safety in college trying to play linebacker. Had a tougher first day, which you would expect. You try not to hold that against the guy too much. I thought he got a bit better as the week went along. I don't know. I mean, I try to focus on the positives and how guys fit your systems more than just outward negativity with some of these. So I'd have to probably think more to come up with a list, and maybe that's something that'll be naturally talked about during our Wednesday conversation, our draft roundtable.
I think the want once you get into draft season is for listeners and readers and all to get definitives as much. Well, who can we, who's on this list? And I mean, if you're tuning in to get definitives throughout this thing, you're probably tuned into the wrong place. This is for not only for me, Alex, and the contributors on Steelers Depot. It's a giant learning process, and we just try to learn more about players. Now, look, as more Blues Clues, as we like to call them, present themselves, we usually feel good by the end of this thing of probably building a list of about 100 guys that we think the Steelers might be willing to draft kind of thing. But to sit here in February and build to give definitives on things, man, I'm still trying to learn where a lot of these guys even went to school,
And I will say, from a Blues Clues aspect, we know how important that pro day visit is, especially for the first round pick. And so until those things take place, we can't be able to really, check those kind of boxes or not check those boxes and other things, what positional coaches are going to work out and stuff like that. So from who they're going to draft, I mean, we're way too far away from an evaluation standpoint. The Senior Bowl is an important piece. You're going against your peers and really good competition, but it is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. And for me, the practices themselves are important. You do learn a lot there, but I love getting to talk to these guys because you don't get to talk to these guys. You can watch as much tape as you want. It's all out there, but getting to know the person is important for us and important for the teams as well.
And look, when we get into the combine as well, too, getting to see, who's sparkier than who, and who has the new buzz instead of P Spark is the RAS score, relative athletic score. That's starting to hold a lot of weight in this process with what Math Bomb does and all like that. You use little pieces of this puzzle here to kind of put the picture together for the Steelers, overall. Right. So it's all part of the process, and we're just at the beginning of this process now.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Zach Myers writes in about Malik Willis. Hey, hi, Dave and Alex. Zach here, longtime reader and listener. I wanted to say thanks for a great coverage of the Senior and Shrine Bowls. My question to you all is, with all the buzz growing around Malik Willis, will the Steelers end up needing to trade up to be able to grab him in the draft? That's another definitive, Zach, that we have no answer to. I will say this when it comes to the quarterback position, and regardless of how good or bad the quarterback position is, usually your top 2 or 3 guys are going to be off the board by what, 8, 15, 18, right around in there. However, this class 2 or this draft 2 has a lot of those teams that just recently got quarterbacks picking ahead in those picks as well too. So just when's the last time that you remember not having a couple or 2 or 3 quarterbacks off the board by the time 20 rolls around?
Yeah, it's very rare. Now, this again, as you said, and you're accurate when you say this quarterback class is not as strong, so
Right.
you can't always shoehorn a quarterback into that top spot. But yeah, it is hard to assume that the first quarterback will not come off until pick 20. That is incredibly rare, even for a less than stellar class. And so with Willis specifically, it's really hard to say. It just takes one team. Kind of, I'll give you all the cliches there.
And it literally does, because there are going to be teams that think that really like and look, if you're a general manager too, and if you're in a non-Pittsburgh situation where you think, man, I got to win, I got to take some gambles here, and if I don't have a franchise quarterback, I'm not going to make it. If I don't have a mobile quarterback, maybe we have the coaching staff in place that we can get this guy from point A to point C in one off season here. It's a cliche, but it's true. All it takes is one team to be in love with one of these guys, and if he picks ahead of you, if that team picks ahead of you, he could be gone.
Yeah, and it's a very jumbled quarterback class where there is no clear favorite, and so teams are going to have very different opinions of kind of their kind of guy. If you made me answer that question and you forced me to and hold it against me later, I'll say yes. Willis will be gone before pick 20.
Oh, I got a more definitive out of Alex here early in the.
Yeah. I regret my definitives. The last time I made a definitive on this podcast, I have to change the name of my child now. So I really should stay away from those kinds of things.
Let's see here. One last one from Kenny Grant. Hey, David Knox. Grant here from Sarasota, Florida. I had a couple questions regarding this coming offseason. I'm with Alex on the decision to have Colbert stay until after the draft. If he is going to stay in some sort of advisory role, then why not have the new GM start now? My question is, assuming the Steelers know what they are doing in this transition, are we to assume that one of the inside guys will maybe have more of a say during the draft and free agency? It is just hard for me to believe someone would accept the role of new GM without being a good part involved, at least during the offseason. Number 2, he says, of all the needs the team has, could you guys talk about which positions are more likely to be filled by the draft or free agency? Wide receiver is in need, and they usually get one in the draft, for example. Thanks for you guys' whole team and the great offseason work. I can sing It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. Grant Kenny works here. I'll take the second one first about which positions are more likely to be filled via the draft, via free agency. Wide receiver is most definitely one of those. This team did not draft a wide receiver last year. To me, it's kind of hard to imagine this team going out in free agency and throwing money at a guy. So I really think within the first 3 rounds of the draft, if there's one kind of definitive you want to paint me into a corner with here, I've got a strong feeling that the Steelers will draft one wide receiver within the first 3 rounds of the draft. How is that, Alex?
All right, there you go. Yeah, I like that for sure. I think you're right on the money with that. In terms of the GM, I don't know what you can assume. And in terms of, even if you could assume he'll have more say, what does that mean? Is he actually making the pick? It sounds like it's still going to be Colbert and Tomlin making the pick. So what does more influence really mean? I have no idea. I don't think anyone really does. And so again, I know we'll hear about it 18 more times about how this is exactly like what Baltimore did. It's nothing like what Baltimore did. Newsom, whenever they made the decision a year in advance, he said he would be going to an advisory role. We don't even know if Colbert will be going into an advisory role. When he said that may happen, there was no definitive answer about it. So that's when I say where it's a bit messy. There's a lot of unknowns, and of course there are. They may know those unknowns more than we know. I'm going in like a whole Rumsfeld kind of loop here, but it just seems a bit messy for my liking.
Other than what I don't know, do you agree with my thought on wide receiver in the first 3 rounds? Do you think that's a definitive that within the first 3 rounds this team drafts a wide receiver?
I'm a little more hesitant to use definitive. I think they will draft one. I want to see obviously what happens with Juju. It sounds like he's going to go based on the comments that were made whenever I was gone, and Washington's not going to be back. So, yeah, I think probably day 2 for receiver. I think in terms of free agency versus draft, it's usually based on the strength of those classes. The classes that are, if you have a strong free agent class and a weak draft class, then you're going to be more apt to go free agency route and vice versa with position. So I think that's usually, you can't answer those things in a vacuum. It's based on the class themselves, and I have not taken enough look at the free agent classes in particular, and it's going to be moving and shaking with cuts and resigns and tags and stuff like that I don't have a great answer, but it's always based off the strength of those things.
And look, this thing will start painting itself more into a certain direction once free agency does get started, right?
Yeah, or at least in those couple of days leading up to it, when you kind of know what guys are going to hit the market and what guys are not going.
If they re-sign a guy like Terrell Edmonds, for example, then odds are that a strong safety type's not going to be the focus of this team early in the draft, right? What's going to happen with Chukwuma Okorafor? What's going to happen with Juju specifically, as far as these guys go? Who's another top end? What's going to happen with Akella Witherspoon?
Yeah, and Edmonds and those kinds of things.
Where if you throw some money at a guy like Akella Witherspoon, and you already have Cameron, what is that going? What's the likelihood that you turn around with a first or second round pick and draft a cornerback?
Right. So these things are all interrelated. There's a domino effect, and that makes those conversations tough to have right here in early February.
Right. By the time we get 2 weeks into the new league year, starting on March 16th, in other words, by the end of March, we'll probably be able to paint a much better picture. Go ahead and write down Connor Hayward to the Steelers, though, by the way.
So do you think that they would cut Watt in that scenario?
No, you know what? I think you could just let it. I just think it's one of those things that you let it play out there. And I was trying to think, is Connor Hayward enough of a, how many running backs did this team carry this past year? Is he a better, is he an upgrade over a guy like, who was it?
Balaj,
Kalen Balaj. I mean, he can do a lot more than Kalen Balaj, I think. I mean, even from maybe a running back perspective there. So could you maybe fathom a scenario where you kept both Watt and Hayward? And I don't know, maybe Hayward's inactive first cut, unless he can help out right away on special teams. There's a lot of different ways because of the skill set that Hayward has that I think opens up maybe some talk to potentially you having both, and then obviously Hayward becoming more of that guy year, second season and all like that. So I don't think just because if you drafted a guy like Connor Hayward that you'd paint yourself into a corner where it necessarily has to be one or the other, especially when you look at what they did with the running back room this past year.
Yeah, that's true. Balaj really felt like he didn't have a home, but was that the best use of a roster spot? It probably wasn't. But yeah, I get your point there. Hayward is an H-back and definitely more of an offensive weapon than a Derek Watt is.
And I think you could do it. I mean, and look, could it end up in either or situation? Absolutely, it could be. But the Steelers are, they love him. It's an easy connect the dots type situation there, and it's also
but do you spend a draft pick on that when you have limited draft capital and a lot of?
You get in the 6th or 7th round. I mean, kind of. I want to go with the devil I know.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they'll be.
And look, he might even go under. I doubt it. I mean, I think there's one team at least in this thing that would fake. I tell you what, he's not a first, second, or third round draft pick prospect.
Yeah, he's a day 3 guy.
He's a late prospect kind of guy though. But we have seen lesser, especially when it comes to Mr. Irrelevant type of guys. That's the kind of guy that I think if I'm a special teams coordinator specifically, and maybe a running back coach, that I might be pounding the table for the 7th round of this thing to get put in my room. Those kind of things here. But anyway, we will get to talking more about what happened down at the Senior Bowl in our roundtable discussion on Wednesday. Any final thoughts about this trip to Mobile this time, Alex?
I'm sure we'll talk about it more Wednesday. Just a lot of fun. Good to meet those guys too. Tyler, Jonathan, Jacob. They're all wonderful people, really driven, really football intelligent, and made the week that much better.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. For $25, you can have an ad-free version of the site. So until Wednesday, Alex, appreciate your hard work and glad to have you back, keeping the show under control again. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.